Hello again. My name is Lachlan Watt, and welcome to another episode of Music is My Life. This week's episode is a little bit different. You're about to hear a conversation I had with Alana K Vocal, a singing teacher based in Melbourne who actually specializes in extreme metal vocals. Alana also leads the Heavy Choir, a metal choir group who perform across Victoria. She's also actually about to launch a new death metal project called Yakṣī with some fellow scene veterans. And here's an exclusive little taste of their debut single, I Piss Power. You can expect an official release from the band in the coming months, and I'll link to their Instagram in the show notes if you'd like to stay tuned for that. But it's time for a quick backstory. In 2015, I was thrown in the deep end as a fill-in vocalist for Thy Art Is Murder, and with less than a week's notice and zero proper rehearsals, I was suddenly on tour for 5 weeks, playing 30-something shows across the USA. The middle chunk of the tour contained 16 shows back-to-back with no days off, so of course I absolutely destroyed my voice and came home to it being in pretty poor condition. I was recommended Alana's services by several friends, and I had a few lessons with her to help improve my technique before we were to head off to Europe a month later and do it all again. I was actually convinced I'd done some serious damage, and for a moment I was considering a proper medical investigation, but ultimately I came to my senses and realized it might just be time to go see Alana again for a little diagnosis and some help getting back up to scratch. And after a very helpful and fun lesson, we sat down to record this podcast. Anyway, my name is Lachlan Watt, music is my life, and now I give you my conversation with Alana K Vocal. How are you going today, Alana?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me in today.
Anytime.
What did we learn about my voice today?
God, we did plenty. How deep do you want to go into it? Do you mind sharing all your personal business?
Yeah, I don't know
with
if
everyone?
I don't mind if everyone knows that like my voice ain't exactly what it used to be.
Cool. Well, I think the main takeaway from today's session, we've got three main blocks that we need to work on. So the first one being diaphragmatic release for lung capacity. So as you would have felt when we were doing our breathing exercises and working on sustained notes and using those abdominal muscles, you can feel the diaphragm being, every singer talks about the diaphragm, like breathe through your diaphragm, sing through your diaphragm, but it's a term that's thrown around a lot, but no one necessarily talks about what that actually fucking means. So for you, having that understanding that your diaphragm kind of looks like a big brown leather horse saddle, and it's something that separates your chest from your guts. And when we inhale, the diaphragm itself moves down. And if we're taking in quite a deep expiration, it can move down about 10 centimeters. And we want to make sure that it moves down, as well as other muscles on the sides of your abdominal cavity moving out to create more room in the thoracic cavity. And then you are able to use your full lung capacity. So you're able to take in a really deep breath, which is what you need for the moment, because your diaphragm is quite stuck and you would have felt it's not moving down, right?
Yeah, I don't even know, like it's funny, I didn't even really think about that for some reason, like, because as I told you, I emailed like the ear, nose, throat hospital thinking like something must be wrong with my voice, like, with my throat, like what is going on, like I've got to get to the bottom of this. And then I saw they were like, yeah, we can come in and check it out, it's like $650 or something. And
Insane.
I was like, and I thought, yeah, maybe I should just go see Alana and see if there's something up that's like not going to cost an insane amount to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, it's a good idea to try that first. I'm all for seeing the ENT, but and it's not only is it expensive, but the wait list at the moment with the public system, especially just through the fucking roof.
I feel like if I had gone to the ENT, I probably would not have learnt anywhere near as much about how to keep my vocal health up as I did today.
Cool. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I don't want to talk shit on ENTs because obviously they're very, very educated and they have a fantastic role, especially with vocalists. But I find that it can be very in and out. They're looking for a specific thing. They're making sure that you don't have polyps, you don't have nodules, you don't have cancer. Move on. Next thing. But when you're vocal focused, there's all these other things going on that you want to check that the ENT doesn't necessarily have in mind. They're just kind of, their main focus point really is just to check that you can breathe, you can swallow, and you're not dying.
So you think if I'd gone to an ENT today instead of you, they probably would have just been like, yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, generally. Look, it depends on who you see. Some ENTs understand where a vocalist is coming from. And there are a few good ENTs in Melbourne that are vocal specific or singer specific or actor specific, understanding that you use your voice for your job, and they might be able to point out whether they can see some dehydration in the voice or whether there's inflammation in certain areas and possibly where that is coming from and why, and then recommend you to go and see a voice specialist to help with that. But generally, look, there are also some ENTs out there that don't necessarily have like a fun personality either.
Right.
And, they'll put the numbing spray on your nose because, obviously the ear, nose and throat are all connected on the inside. Don't even give that any time to have an effect. Shove the camera up your nose, down your throat, get you to make a noise, and just check that you can breathe, you can swallow. There's nothing in there that's going to be detrimental for your like primary living reasons for health, and then move you on. So if you are going to see an ENT for any reason, especially if you're someone who uses a voice for a living or you're worried about a change that's going on in your voice, just make sure that you advocate for yourself and you're very specific with your needs on what you want out of the ENT, because most of the time they're not going to tell you.
Have you ever had someone like a student that's come in a similar situation to me and then actually had to be like, actually, no, you should go see an ENT. There's something really wrong with your throat.
Yeah, I have. And quite often I will take my client, especially if I have good rapport and good relationship with my client, I will take them to the ENT. There was one guy in particular a few years ago he was always late in seeing me. He was just one of those guys that never had his shit together. And he was also recording an album with me, and I really liked some of the guys in his band. Some of them were my friends, and I really wanted them to do well. So we ended up moving him into my house for about 2 weeks just to make sure he would show up on time for his vocal tracking and he wasn't going on a bender and disappearing. And so obviously the ENT was costing him a lot of money, and I drove him into the city, and we were 45 minutes early, and he still somehow managed to be late for the appointment. He just disappeared. I was late for the appointment. But, yeah, I do like to tag along if I can, just to have someone else there to advocate and look for specific needs that are going to help with your vocal health and your vocal care as a vocalist.
Yep.
And make sure that the ENT is aware of that so you can ask specific questions. When the camera's down the throat as well, I can ask for you to make specific noises so I can see what's going on with your vestibular folds and certain cartilage and how the vocal cords are moving, and just how I imagine what's going on anatomically with your voice when I'm working with you. I get to kind of visualize it. So any questions I have as well is really handy. So I will go if I can, but always word up exactly what you want from your ENT because they're not going to necessarily give it to you.
Yep. But ultimately for me, the diagnosis is I've lost a little bit of range and I just kind of don't have the control over my diaphragm like I used to, and that's all going to be able to come back as long as I just do some exercise with it.
Yeah, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to go really hard ass on you. But you're right, ultimately it's getting that diaphragm unstuck, rebuilding your core activation. And what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have to be super strong. You don't need a six-pack to have a really good core. And I have some clients who do have a six pack and they might look really good with their shirt off and look like they're super fit, but they don't have that mind muscle connection where they're activating their core muscles. So we want to get yours activating a little bit, especially your external intercostals and some of the muscles in your pelvic floor, strengthening them, but also that activation. That's going to help with those long sustains as well. And it helps with how you use your air. So as a vocalist, a lot of the time when we're talking about breathing, we think about lung capacity. It's just how much air I take in. We're not necessarily thinking about how we distribute the air. So the air coming up from the lungs comes up the trachea, and that's what vibrates the vocal cords. And we want to make sure that we have control over that. And for you, using your core muscles, you're going to have much more control in how you distribute that air. So you know how when we were going over certain lines, how you were leaking out a lot of air, and then that's going to fuck you up for the next line, and certain consonants and certain vowel sounds as well, accidentally pushing too much on a plosive or something. All those little 1%ers make a difference, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that and your inflammation.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think the inflammation's from?
For you specifically?
Yeah.
So the first thing we discussed is I can definitely hear that you're a snorer.
Yeah.
You're a snorer, probably more than I think you would like to admit to yourself.
Yeah.
So we want to get that snoring under control. Do you remember the reasons why we talked about snoring being so detrimental for a vocalist?
Drying out the vocal folds.
Exactly. So when we're snoring, we're breathing through our mouth and quite intensely. And like we were discussing this morning, when we breathe in through our nose, we've got natural humidifiers in there and they moisten and filter the air. When we're mouth breathing, we're not using that filter. So the air that's coming in is quite dry. And the vocal cords themselves, they're covered in like a sticky mucus, but it's a mucus that you want there. And when they vibrate together, which they can do hundreds of times per second, we want to make sure that they're quite sticky and lubricated so there's no friction. If you're a vocalist and you're snoring, let's say 5 hours a night, you're just drying out your instrument like crazy. And then you're waking up, doing your warm-ups, going into your usual routine. You might have the best technique in the world, but if there's an issue with your mechanism, if you're starting with a dry mechanism, doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to get good results.
Yep.
So we want to minimize the snoring. Dehydration. A lot of vocalists or anyone in general, they go, I've got a fucking dry voice. I better have some water, not realizing that when we drink water, it doesn't touch your vocal cords at all. Your vocal cords live in your trachea. So that's the pipe that goes down into your lungs. You don't want water touching your vocal cords because then the water would pass through, get into your lungs and you would drown and you would die. So you want your water to go down into your stomach. So yes, of course, drinking water and tea and, throat coat tea and whatever else and coconut water, and it's going to hydrate you, but it's an indirect hydration. So for you, we talked about vocal steaming. Whether like using the AKV bottle I gave you or just getting like a big bowl, boiling hot water, nothing else in it, inhaling the steam. So the steam is going to directly moisturize those vocal cords just so you're getting your mechanism nice and healthy to begin with, and then we can work on more technical stuff on top of that. Other things like smoking, vaporizing, that's very, very hot for the tissue. Obviously, it's going to dry you out, but it's very hot and very drying for not just the vocal cords, but all the other tissue in the throat as well. So we want to try and minimize those as much as possible.
So I think the last time I saw you before this would have been was it 2020 or 2021?
I think so. It's been a while. I have no concept of time, like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. It's like before Christ and after Christ. Yeah,
it's pretty much the common theme on this podcast is these last 4 or 5 years, everyone's just like, when the fuck was that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that we identified any problems like that with my diaphragm or anything.
No, this is new.
Yeah. So what would be your thesis on how that's happened?
It's a really good question. The most Look, it can happen for a few reasons. A lot of people are working on computers. We're sitting down, we're not as active, we're living like a sedimentary lifestyle. So because of that, because we don't have a strong core, we're not having the need to breathe deeply. For some people, it can be injury-based, and then we compensate with certain muscles. So say, for example, you've had a broken back or a broken leg or something, and you, again, haven't been very active, been sitting down for a long time, using other muscles to compensate, you're not going to be breathing deeply. But for you, and also one of the most common things that I see, it's directly correlated to your nervous system. So like we talked about this morning with our autonomic nervous system, the two main aspects of that are, we call it fight or flight and rest and digest, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. If you are in fight or flight for too long, you are going to feel quite tight. And when you're living in a state of stress and a state of anxiety, which most of us are these days, it has a massive effect on the way we breathe. There's a lot of tension in the body. Short-term stress is great for the body, like when we talked about ice baths and stuff this morning. Long-term, it's really going to fuck you up. And I see a lot of diaphragms being stuck. I see a lot of shallow breathing. I see a lot of no mind muscle connection with the abdominal muscles at all. And we need to shift that back, bring you back into your body, bring you back connected, having control again. The other thing that we talked about with the nervous system too is over time when we begin to become very tight and we're shallow breathing, our heart and our lungs work together. They're a team. Our lungs have no muscle tissue and our heart and lungs work together. So when we take slower breaths, our heart rate decreases. When we take lots of breaths, our heart rate increases. If you're shallow breathing and you've lost that connection, everything's feeling really tight, obviously you still need lots of oxygen. So if you can't breathe deeply, you're going to be breathing lots of breath rates per minute, which is going to increase your heart rate. And then that sends an electronic signal to your hypothalamus, which controls your nervous system that goes, hey, fuck, are we under attack? Your body is now going to act like there's a lion in the room that you need to run from. So you're going to release a lot of cortisol, a lot of adrenaline. You're not going to digest food properly. Your pupils are going to be different. You're going to have a rush of blood and you're going to be in a state of anxiety all fucking day, which then creates like a domino effect for that cycle where you're not going to be breathing as deeply, as calmly, as relaxed as you need to help build lung capacity and to help train connection with your abdominal muscles for using your voice correctly. Mm-hmm. So it's just a vicious cycle. You hear a lot of vocal trainers talk about breathing. Breathing is the most boring concept. A lot of singers don't want to think about it because they're like, fuck, I do this subconsciously, blah, blah, blah. But it all comes back to that foundation. It's the tree root. When you control your breathing, you control everything.
Yeah, I love those memes that'll just force you to think about breathing manually and all of a sudden you're just discombobulated.
Yeah.
So you have a very adept, it seems like, biological knowledge of all of this stuff as well as the musical knowledge required. Tell me about your journey into getting an education and all of this stuff and becoming a vocal coach. Like, was it just a passion that you followed or did you end up here accidentally or how'd you get here?
A little bit of both. So I've been teaching contemporary voice full time for almost 20 years, a long time. And along the way, I've had a real thirst for knowledge, especially in biology and anatomy and physiology and breath work and also holistic medicine. And the more that I work with clients, especially one-on-one, the more it made sense to me as a coach to look at you holistically. Your instrument you carry in your body, and it's not like any other instrument out there. So what's going on neurologically with you, what's going on with your endocrine system and your hormone, we've got hormone receptors on our vocal cords. What's going on with your general communication and your expression. They say the eyes are the window to the soul, but really I believe the voice is the window to the soul. And if I know you well, because I've been working with voice for so long, I can hear when you're stressed out, when you're holding back tears. I can hear if you're on your period. I can hear if you haven't had that much sleep. I can hear if you're dehydrated. There's so many different indications that the voice can tell you. And the more that I started working with clients, I guess, one, I had an interest in anatomy and physiology, but also it became really relevant because certain vocal challenges would come up with people that I would kind of notice, and I wanted to connect all of these dots. So I think going back to study, I'm always studying. Obviously, I studied music, and I've studied there's not a lot of relevant voice courses out there.
Yeah.
These days there's a little bit more information, but back when I was doing voice study, I studied with Berkeley in the USA, doing particular vocal units. There's like the Estill method, which I really gravitated towards, not because they necessarily teach contemporary music, but because they had a great understanding of what's going on anatomically. And that really hit my thirst for knowledge. And then I had a big interest in speech and neurology. So I went to Australian Catholic University a few years ago and was studying speech and neurology there, and learned a lot. But I think it just all kind of rolls into one. I'm constantly reading stuff and constantly updating myself with new studies, and everyone laughs at me because they'll come in and I'll be looking like at a giraffe autopsy online while I'm eating pasta. But B-grade horror movies freak me out. The gore is so disgusting I can't handle it, but I'll watch an autopsy any day of the week. Right. So I think it's just like there is study there, but also just the general thirst for knowledge, and working with people one-on-one and kind of learning boots on the ground as well. It's just a combination of things with experience over time, I suppose.
And when did was the metal or the heavy side of vocals sort of always a part of that?
Always there, always there. I love this question, and no one ever asked me this question. Thank you. So I've always loved heavier music, even as a young child. I think back to when I'm 5 or 6 years old, I used to write down, I'd be watching a movie or something on the television and I would hear not necessarily heavy or extreme music, but just someone using their voice or instrumentation with some sort of weird expression. And I was always really attracted to that. So I'd be writing down shit that I'd hear on the TV or on radio station, and this poor dude at the local record store, I'd be constantly giving him lists of stuff. With little lyrics that I'd captured, or I'd walk in there and go, it sounds like bum chicka wah wah, or can you find this for me? And so I was really trying to expose myself from a really young age to different types of expression, I guess. And then I started leaning towards more. I still love, to this day, I love all sorts of music, but I was leaning more towards heavier music. And, my dad showed me the first few Black Sabbath albums and AC/DC, and, he loves, which I love too, a lot of old school blues like Howlin' Wolf and Screamin' Jay Hawkins, and guys that are using just extreme variations of expression in their voice. And then when I first got the internet, I was like, what else can people do with their voices? And, heavy guitars, and what's this? And I found Malevolent Creations Envenomed, which I think came out in 2000, and that just blew my, particularly the song Homicidal Rant. I just used to listen to that over and over, and I would hear Brett Hoffman's voice and just think, how the fuck does he do that? And just this obsession grew within me.
That feels like a pretty deep cut for an entry, like a gateway band.
Yeah. And to this day, I have so many gaps with things, because I think I found that record, I was a 10 when that came out.
You went into Malevolent Creation when you were 10.
From Black Sabbath to Blue, but there's no in between.
That's wild.
It's wild. So now, you know, when I have friends that have these nostalgic attachments to Slipknot and just like.
So you skipped all that?
I skipped all that. So I listened to some of that and I can appreciate it and I appreciate the production values of it, but it just sounds fucking lame to me. I don't get it. So I do have all these knowledge gaps, but I loved experimenting with these kind of sounds. And I started working with voice when I was a teenager. I started studying voice, you know, just like preliminary education and vocalizing myself. And no teacher that I could find could help me figure out how to make heavy sounds with my voice.
Because you're like, I want to sound like old mate from Malevolent Creation.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Or they'd maybe teach me like a musical theatre belting and I'd show them and immediately they'd go, this is very dangerous. I don't want to do this. And blah, 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 blah. So there was a lot of self-experimentation. There was a lot of no long-term damage, but I definitely fucked myself up along the way trying to make sounds.
What do you think the most common thing that people do is when they're trying to teach themselves and fuck their voices?
That's such a great question too.
Sorry, I'm derailing.
No, I love it. I'm a
time.
derailer, so derail away. Two most common things I see is people, one, are generally so disconnected from their body that they don't listen to their body. Your voice will tell you when you fucked up. You will feel a sensation. You will feel heat. You will feel inflammation. You will feel pain. I mean, I have some guys come in that go, yeah, so I just push my voice until it starts bleeding, which is obviously a super red flag. But it's those not listening to their voice. Two, pushing way too much air or tension. You know, we hear an aggressive sound, so it's like a false fold scream.
Yeah.
It sounds like an aggressive sound because it is an aggressive sound, but we hear that and we immediately think tension. And a lot of people when they're first beginning, they will push. It's almost like they're trying to take a shit from their throat and they squeeze everything and it becomes like this real like cooking monster kind of sound. That's the polar opposite from the correct technique. We don't want any tension. There's certain muscles in the vocal structure where we do need tension, but like we were just discussing before, the distortion generally comes from all of the tissue being loose enough to be able to flap around. I call it the flappening. And there's no the flappening happening when we're tense. So they're tense and then they're just pushing air and just punching their voice with air, too much tension, and it's just going to destroy you. It's going to dehydrate you. It's just going to shred your voice, and then you're going to wake up the next day feeling really hoarse. Everything's going to be inflamed. And then if you try again on an inflamed voice, it just creates this cycle of death. So that's probably the biggest thing I see is people not listening to the warning signs. I always recommend when you're first starting to learn these voice techniques, you're going to fuck up. It's just part of it. So consistency is the key. I start my clients on maybe even 5 minutes a day maximum, and then they've got to sit with their voice. How's your voice feeling? How's it feeling in a couple of hours? How's it feeling the next day? We'll do 5 minutes again. So we're building the mind-muscle connection, but also if you fuck up, there's less chance that you're going to shred your voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that consistency is probably the main thing that I've lacked in recent years. Just not playing as many shows as I was when I first, because I'd completely blown my voice out in the USA with Thyarda's Murder, and that's when I first came to see you, I think in 2015, to be like, hey, I've done this. And
need some help.
Need some help, please. And yeah, it was quite helpful.
Yeah, and like well, I'm glad to know that it was helpful, but you're a busy bloke. So to be able to tour on that level and play shows that consistently, you do have to treat yourself as an athlete. You are a vocal athlete. You know, you're using muscle and cartilage and tissue the way any other athlete does when they're training. And phonating or singing is one of the few things where we don't view the athleticism quite the same. Like if you were training for the Olympics, you wouldn't go to the gym once a week. So you can't just vocalize once a week. And we all learn it the hard way, which you did. And also some of us are talented enough, young enough and fit enough where we can kind of wing it, which I feel like you fall into that category a little bit too.
I think age just kind of, you get it, as you said, you get away with it, and then when the years start to go on, you're like, oh shit, I don't have that same ability anymore.
Yeah, I can't manage this.
I didn't have to worry about it before.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, I haven't been singing as regularly, so I noticed that my range is not as good as it once was. My stamina has kind of disappeared. And it literally is just use it or lose it, right?
Correct. And now you have to work for it. And having the wing it talent, it's a real blessing in disguise because you don't have to work hard for it. But now that we're getting older, and now that some of the effects of not consistent technique have kind of crept in, you can't wing it anymore. And there's a lot of people kind of our age and above that are really like suffering from that, I think. And it's a rude awakening. It's really hard to deal with.
Do you get many vocalists coming through in my kind of circumstances?
So many.
Yeah?
So many. Yeah.
Yeah. So shouldn't feel too much shame about
no.
getting shittier as I age.
And it's really cool to talk about it because there's no stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And also seeking help. Like there's a mental health stigma and there's a vocal lesson stigma for some reason. So some people,
I guess it's just weakness. It's all weakness, right? No one wants to
admit it.
Like, hey, I'm weak. I need help.
Absolutely. So admitting that you need help with it is a tough one, especially if you were able to do it before and you've somehow lost it and you don't know why. And I think when you're looking at tuition as well, some people have in their minds that to go and see a coach means you're bad. Which is not necessarily the case. You know, anyone who's a professional in whatever field has a coach. So it can be, for some people, they're just really excited to have a coach and they seek it out and it's no problem. But for some people need to be really talked into it. You know, I'll work with some bands and I'll be talking with their guitarist for months of them saying like, I'm really trying to talk my vocalist into coming to see you because, you know, the last time we didn't use a coach for the album and like it was just a shit show and I keep bullying him, and it just takes sort of like this courage to come in, and which I understand because as we were again discussing before, it's quite vulnerable. You're one-on-one, you're in a space where you're sharing, it's a piece of you, and especially if it's something that once was and now is a little bit broken, or there is, I don't want to say shame attached to that, but there's a disappointment attached to it. So it is hard. But a lot of vocalists that I've worked with, I always try and make clear when I'm chatting with people that, you know, I've worked with blah, blah, or blah, blah, or blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean that they weren't talented from the get-go and I've taught them every single thing that they know. A lot of people on that level, like a lot of my job is I'll work with you for a few months and I won't see you for months. And then you come back for a tune-up. And I think when you're at a level where you're working regularly, the tune-ups are what's most important. It's not like grade 6 guitar lessons where you're building it from scratch.
So who were some of your first like major clients that enabled you to kind of become established as a heavy vocal coach?
Oh gosh, that's a good question too, because I'm trying to bring back.
It's faded.
Yeah, it's a bit faded. Look, I used to work at a recording studio in Hallam called Pony Music. I was teaching out of there, and there were a lot of bands. That was back in the days where like MLG were running shows, and a lot of young bands had kind of incentive to work hard, and a lot of venues. There was a lot more venues in the suburbs where the studio was located, and so quite often someone would, you know, an engineer would be in the studio and they would drag me in and go, oh, this guy, he's making all these weird sounds and he needs help. So I would be working with a lot of local acts, experimenting and having a play, and a lot of the time it would just be 17-year-old kids or whatever. And I didn't think anything of it because I've been teaching all genres, and I think kind of word got out that there was this chick that knew stuff about screaming and screamed herself and screamed in bands herself and whatever. And then next minute it was just everyone from the Melbourne scene So I think like in my early days, like we were talking before about like I the Enemy and Orpheus, who else? Oh, Nave Liviscaris. I'm just trying to like look on who's on that wall.
So this is
over
like
there.
your partner's like collection of all the stuff he's recorded, right?
Yeah, so it's like some of my collection and mostly his collection. There's a lot of stuff that's not even on there because a lot of the shelves are broken and we don't display our stuff as well as we should.
And Troy still works at Pony Music, the place you were just talking about, right?
No? So we both left Pony. I mean, he'll hire the room out occasionally. There's been a lot of changes there. We record a lot of albums in here, but he records everywhere. I'm trying to think of other acts. But then, yeah, it kind of expanded and then I'd have like a lot of international artists. Maybe there wasn't someone in their country or they'd be learning things from their coach or someone on YouTube and then Zoom became a thing, which was really exciting.
Yeah, also revolutionised your
totally revolutionised it.
Abilities.
Yeah, because a lot of the time when I'm working with international artists, I have to wait for them to come here when they're touring. But then when Zoom became a thing, and Zoom was a bit shit because obviously there's a lag and it's really hard for me to hear. If you don't have a good setup, it's difficult for me to be able to diagnose an issue with you because the microphone is going to distort at certain levels and, it depends on your SPL and what kind of setup you've got going on. And so I do still hate teaching over Zoom. Since the pandemic happened and everyone was doing everything over Zoom, they kind of updated their standards and it did get better. But it's hard. It's hard. And I totally forgot the question you were asking me.
Just
derailed.
Clients, first sort of major clients. Then you were talking about having international students and people coming for lessons when they're on tour. Like what have been some of the bigger names that have come for a lesson?
The biggest one that probably comes up a lot is Cradle of Filth.
You taught Danny Filth?
No. We've made some sounds together and he's asked me a couple questions and whatever, but I haven't had regular sessions with him.
Right.
But Lindsay Schoolcraft she does her own thing now. I don't think she's in Cradle of Filth anymore and she's in Antiqua and a few other bands. It's surprising how much that name comes up. And probably because I haven't updated my website in like 10 or 15 years. Which I know we were laughing about before, how difficult social media is. And I'm shocking at it. There's so many different artists that I haven't put up on my website or haven't promoted or whatever. But to this day, and I haven't worked with Lindsay in probably 5 years or something. But every time I go out, someone mentions her. So she's obviously making waves and doing really well and she's doing a lot of solo stuff, which is great. But yeah, I quite often will go, oh, you're the chick that taught Lindsay and blah, blah. So I'd say probably her, but I have no idea, to be honest.
What about in the last year or two, let's just say post-pandemic era, who have been some of the bigger clients that have come through your way?
Good question, because I haven't worked full-time in the past 2 years. I've been taking care of a sick family, so I've only kind of been working part-time and I'm just going to bring the ones that come to mind that actually stick out for me that I feel like sound really great. There's a band called Soul Dusk. I don't know if you've heard of Soul Dusk. Yeah. Emily, so I've kind of worked with her on and off over the years and it's so funny because she was, when Soul Dusk was in her imagination and she was just a chick with a guitar that wanted to do extreme vocals and then folky vocals and whatever. Playing with that from the get-go and I had a session with her the other night and just seeing how far she's come, it just made my heart melt. She's sounding so fantastic. So,
yeah, nice.
I want to say Soul Dust. She makes some really interesting sounds with her voice. Another one that I think everybody should listen to, and I'm such a big fan of his vocal style and vocal abilities. There's a Melbourne band called Munt.
Oh, yeah.
M-U-N-T. Their vocalist.
Mothlord?
Mothlord, yeah. Tim, which I still call him Mothlord because I've worked with Mothlord on and off for since he was like a 15-year-old kid. He's always been a freak. He's just one of those dudes that can defy science and, again, like a tune-up guy. Moth vocal abilities, especially on this new album that they're recording, are fucking insane. It's insane. It's just a whole other level. And they asked me to do some guest vocals on one of the tracks a couple of weeks ago, and I was laughing my ass off because it's not only his range and how many different abilities he's got and how many characters he's able to create and express himself, but the dude has a lot to say. Like if you ever met him, he talks a lot. He talks more than me. So many fucking syllables. And I'm laughing my ass off going, I don't think I've ever vocalized this many syllables in a line ever, or in a paragraph or in a section. And the whole album from start to finish, he's just on.
Non-stop.
It's nonstop. It somehow suits the songs. And I think he's able to do different types of characters and so many different types of voicings that it works. But when you really kind of sit back and realize what you're listening to, he's just fucking relentless. It doesn't stop.
Monk's pretty non-stop.
Yeah, in general. The new record sounds amazing. I highly recommend it when it comes out. But his vocal abilities really blow my mind.
Nice. Did you say Alpha Wolf were clients of yours recently?
Not as of recent. I didn't work with their vocalist too much. I think his name's Lachlan as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Worked with him a couple times. There was one session we did over the phone, which were, again, last minute stressful. I need help. Can you help me? Blah, blah, blah. Scotty from Alpha Wolf was my husband's assistant when he was young, learning how to do Pro Tools. I think he worked at a newsagent and was learning how to do Pro Tools, and just fucking worked hard. And I love watching how much Alpha Wolf have exploded just from talent and pure work ethic.
Yeah, they work so hard.
So hard. It's insane. There's another band that came to my mind that I just want to say before I forget, a band called Mirrors.
Oh, yeah.
Paddy, their vocalist, he, again, talking about work ethic, he's always really interested in creating different types of expression and stamina and longevity with his voice. And I really like the tonalities that he's pulling. And he always seems to want to up his game every time they do an album. And just work ethic in general, I always admire. He wants to work hard. He wants to know exactly what his voice is doing. He wants to know how it works, and he wants to know how long it's going to take to create this sound. And so I'd probably say they're the ones that come to mind. But you'll probably, you might mention someone and I'll go, oh, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've sung in some bands yourself over the years. What? Give us the history of your bands.
Yeah, on and off, doing all different types of stuff. I also have a chronic illness, so I've never really, and I'm always teaching full time, so I'd always kind of play and doing writing and jamming and stuff, but I've never really put effort into a major project. Played in a few Melbourne bands and, done some small tours and done a couple of international tours or whatever. And the last few years, my biggest learning curve, I think, was designing a tributes band, which I thought was something that would be really interesting to talk about today, because I was always so against cover and tribute band culture. I was one of those people that thought it was really lame and soul-sucking and whatever. And then I met some guys and who loved old school blues music like I do, and I kind of gave in to the idea of making this project of, singing Etta James and Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy and all this sort of stuff. And holy shit, did it make me a better vocalist. And I have such respect for guys in the covers world. Doing 3-hour shows, especially doing belty stuff.
Especially if it's not in your regular sort of range and stuff as well, right? Or if you're doing multiple different styles and covering different bands, it's really going to push you. It's
insane. My stamina has never been better. And because, I never, my main thing is teaching, and I always played in bands on the side. So I'd play, a gig on the weekend or whatever. I never, or maybe a few shows in a row. But I was never someone who, did 8 weeks of back-to-back shows and then home for 2 weeks and then back-to-back shows again. And his teaching always was my stick. And I have this now I look at cover artists and even cover artists that come in that I work with that do tuition with me, and I have so much respect for that game. And for anyone who wants to up their stamina, go and do that. Go and do 3-hour sets back to back, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, all different styles, different ranges, experiment and play and see how much that ups your stamina. I just remember I've derailed. We're talking about projects. I'm doing a new project at the moment called Yakṣī, which we're almost done recording. Haven't released anything yet, but I think we'd be doing a release next month. Yakṣī, Yakṣī. And it's really cool. I'm excited about it. It's just like groovy death metal with black metal vocals, and it's going to be fun.
And who have you done that project with?
Myself, Mark from Alarum is on bass.
Oh, yeah.
My friend Jacob. So Jacob plays in a band called Payon and a band called Myriadrone. Shit hot guitar player. And Troy, my husband, is back on drums.
Nice.
Troy was quite ill for a while and was unable to play drums to full capacity, and he's healed, and it's so
Back to relentless blast beating.
And it used to, I tell you what, that sound, I'd come home and it would fucking give me the shits, and now it's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard because I missed it. So it's been really fun working with him. And Troy and I, over the years, we're such a great team when we work with other artists. But when it's just us two, it's the only time we fight. We butt heads and we've just got massive creative differences. And I think this time we've both kind of taken a breath. We don't want to fight each other so much. We're going with the flow, and we've found something that, because we've got completely different tastes in music. He likes all the lame shit that I was talking about before. He doesn't. He likes some cool stuff.
I was going to say, you're both like extreme metal fans. Like, it's not that disparate, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not really. It's just, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist too, where I hyperfixate on stuff, and then I get all these ridiculous ideas. And he's not throw and go. Like, he's brilliant at his job. I sound biased. He's fucking amazing at what he does. But I think I need to take advice from him just to move on, and the idea is great, and just to let it fucking go. So I've been learning a lot working with him again, which has been really nice. And we both seem to be in agreement. And the track, we accidentally made some really cool tracks. I'm actually excited to release them.
Sick. Yeah, I'm keen to hear your actual, because I don't think I've ever actually heard your like fully fledged ability on a track before.
Really?
Yeah,
right.
So.
I'll have to send you. I'll have to send you some stuff. Yeah. This one is it's fun. I mean, it's not. It's like we were saying before. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it's just really fun to. I enjoy more of the black metal style and the high shrieky kind of style, and the more like goblin-y kind of voicings, which I've been playing with a lot on this album. And I'm not a screamer all the time. One, because I'm not able to do my job. But two, I just love playing with all different type of vocal styles. So it's been really nice to kind of focus on that and build it again. I generally will build it for a couple of months for a project, and then I go and do something else, and then I don't use that vocal style for 6 months, and then I've got to build it from scratch again. And but yeah, I'll send you some stuff. I think you'll like it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you also do something like the heavy metal choir thing?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. The Melbourne Heavy Choir, it's this incredible project that's been running for a couple of years. I jumped on board last year being, what do they call me? Choir director or choir master or something. But it's great. It's a community choir. I think it's got about 50 people in it now. And you don't necessarily need to have great vocal ability to join, although everyone there's pretty good. And we just do sick arrangements of heavy songs across the genres, and get together and rehearse twice a week, and then go and do some fun shows. So, the songs and arrangements that they do range from anything from like Metallica to Ozzy Osbourne to Fear Factory to Candlemass. AC/DC is a new one, which some of them weren't super stoked on, but it kind of fits in the category, and the arrangement for that is amazing.
So what do those shows look like?
They look like 50 people getting up on the stage doing 6-part harmonies to cool classic heavy songs. And they might do a set list of 10, 15 songs. The audience tends to love it too and joins in and has a play. But it's just a re-envision of like classic songs that you like, and they're really fun. Really fun. So Heavy Choir are doing the Gothic Festival in Melbourne next month in August. And then they're doing a really cool set with a live band because obviously when they play, having a live band and 50 people on stage is just, it's a bit chaotic and a little bit hard to organise. So they do it with backing tracks, one, so we can fit everyone on the stage, and two, rehearsal-wise, that just makes sense. But in November they'll be doing a show called Chapel Off Chapel in Chapel Street with a live band, which will be really fun. But yeah, if you ever see them advertised or whatever, like go and check out the show. It's beautiful arrangements, beautiful voicings and it's just fun. Like you don't hear. We did Choir Fest a few months back, and a lot of the choirs, you know, they're quite traditional and they stick with the traditional style tracks. I think a couple of them did like "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears and thought it was the funniest fucking joke in existence. But it's cool to see a contemporary choir doing contemporary songs and nailing it. They do a fucking awesome job.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
So are there even like, I don't even know of any other like vocal coaches in Australia that specialize in what you do. Is there any others?
I've heard of a few. There is a guy, and I feel really awful because I've forgotten his name. I really hope it comes to me, that lives in the northern suburbs that I've never met, but I've worked with some of his clients, or, you know, like if his clients have moved or they can't book in with him or for whatever reason. And he seems to do really good work, and I'm hoping his name comes to me so I can give him a shout out. I used to send years ago. I worked with Kane Cressel from like The Mentor and Malignant Monster and whatever, and doing voice training. And he's actually over the past decade or so become like a really dear. He's just one of my best friends, and that's something that's cool about in this industry. You know, you start to work with people and build relationships and friendships with them, and then sometimes they're people that become family, you know. And he was teaching for a while, and he's such a brilliant vocalist in just so many ways, like tonality wise, and also just his creative expression is ridiculous. Like I love the stuff that he comes up with. His brain is so fucked up, and it just comes out with this like beautiful tapestry of
he's
melodies and
one
noise.
of my favourite Australian vocalists, I would say.
He's one of my favourites too, and I think everyone should tell him how fantastic he is, because you know we've quite close buddies. So I think when he hears it from me now, it kind of falls on deaf ears, no matter how much I scream it at him. But yeah, I can see why. He's brilliant, and he was teaching for quite a few years, and so I was doing some tuition with him on not even necessarily like vocal techniques anymore, because he had his head around that, but it sort of became like teaching strategies. And I loved being able to send my clients to him, because not only was he such a dear friend, but also I understood the language that he spoke. Because we'd done so much training together, and I knew that he knew what he was doing. So I loved being able to send clients to him. Sometimes if I was just too busy, or sometimes if I felt like, you don't vibe with everybody. Or sometimes I would meet someone and go, "You're really fucking cool and I like working with you, but I feel like you would be a better fit with him, or his teaching style would work better for you." And he hasn't been teaching for a few years, which really gives me the shits, because I don't really know anyone else in Melbourne that covers it
Yep.
in the holistic way that I do. There's some really cool stuff on the internet. But there's some shit out there as well. So you do have to be really careful. The Chris Lipe guy is really good. Mary Zimmer's a really good coach. David Bennett's, I think his name is. His content is brilliant. So there's some really great stuff out there. And I highly recommend people experimenting and having a play. But it is great to find a coach just to kind of have that validation of, am I doing this safely? Is this right? Because you are sort of in the dark no matter how good the content is. And a lot of the content is just fucking trash as well. Some of the online tuition I've seen or some of the recommendations that I've seen, you know, they're like, just drink whiskey and smoke heaps of cigarettes until it sounds really rough and, you know, that's the style you want. And I'm like, holy fuck, I can't believe people are following this advice. So, yeah, it is difficult. If you ever meet anyone and want to introduce them to me or if there's anyone else out there that's actually listening to this that does teach this kind of vocal style, hit me up because I want to be buddies.
Yeah, because it must also, I guess, be kind of difficult for people who are interested in singing like this to like find coaches like you, because I'm sure you go to a regular kind of singing teacher and they're just going to disregard you. That's not legitimate. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So, and there's a few reasons for that. So, I mean, recently contemporary voice, when you're looking like in the science and academia, have kind of come around to this as a vocal style that you can do.
Yep.
But prior to that, it was an no. And in that world, I was always looked at as this terrifying vocal coach that, you know, those techniques weren't talked about when we go to conferences and meet up and stuff. And, you know, I was kind of like the black sheep of it all. And also there weren't that many academic studies on it. So it was really hard to back it up with science. And I'm very science-based and evidence-based with my teaching. And, you know, even like vocal fry, for example, there's heaps of studies on vocal fry, but it's the speaking way of fry. You know, you hear a lot of teenage girls like, oh my God, it's like so annoying. So anything that you would read or study on fry was in that way of speaking. So there wasn't that much science out there for it. So I think that's another reason for it too. And also coaches are we don't want to hurt you and we don't want to be liable. So a lot of people don't want to do the wrong thing. And then there are a lot of academies out there that will claim that they can teach that kind of style, but really they're just teaching mixed belt and legitimate belt singing with heat, kind of more of a rock style voice, which is great, but that's not the same as screaming when someone wants to learn how to scream.
Vocal fry, that's just like basically like I'll probably butcher it, but
go for it.
Can you
try
explain
it and then I'll correct you. You try first.
Isn't it like it's kind of like only like a partial engagement of the vocal cords to create the sounds? Like, so it's sort of like or is it like a screaming in a different part of your voice box? Yeah, I told you I'd butcher it.
That's cool though. I always get you to ask first so I can kind of gauge what your imagination is, because it's cool to imagine it. So when we think of fry, we want to imagine that. So when we speak, the vocal cords come together to vibrate, right? And when we fry, they do the same thing. And depending on your pitch, so obviously like we measure pitch in hertz. So say A, 440 hertz, they're going to vibrate like 440 times per cycle, which is almost a second. So we want to be really careful of the tension. But when we're doing a fry sound, the vocal cords come together, but they're actually quite loose. They are looser than when you're speaking. And what holds them in place is the false folds or the vestibular folds, not to be confused with a false fold scream, because that's a different technique, but we are using the false folds to lock the vocal cords in place when we do a fry sound. And then the vocal cords themselves are kind of just flapping around, and that's what creates all of the harmonics and the distortion that's going on. And then if you want to put like some intensity on that, you can kind of build it up. You know, when people are first learning the fry, I call it the baby dragon because they start just going like, and then they can start putting a little bit more intensity on that and becoming like a big, large scream. But what we want to focus on is getting the vocal cords flapping around whilst being held in place by that passive wall. So you can create a big wall of sound to get it to resonate in your sinus cavities and do whatever. But fry is also used as a texture in clean singing as well. You know, if you want to kind of thing and like have an onset of a sound with a little bit of a texture going on. And so you can use fry in all different ways.
Mm. But it's like, as my understanding of it, is that a lot of heavier vocalists would focus on fry screams to have more longevity with it on tour.
Yes, absolutely. Fry is cool because when you do it correctly, you do have longevity. It is taxing on the voice. All distorted vocals are very taxing on the voice.
Yep.
And I think that's something that we forget sometimes. Again, like any athlete, you don't see athletes in their 50s competing they were in their 30s because you wear out the cartilage, you can wear out your voice long term. So we can do all these techniques correctly, but we do have to be aware that it is taxing. And if you're cool with that, then we kind of go ahead. So fry, we do get longevity, but also fry is the way we use it with our breath. It's really easy to sustain long and high notes. So you can hold like a 30-second scream and the audience loses their fucking mind because they think that it's like the coolest thing they've ever heard.
Mm.
And you must be some sort of wizard to be able to do that. But really it's quite easy to do that sort of thing in a fry technique as opposed to doing like a false fold thing. So, yeah, there is longevity to it, and especially on the higher notes. Fry is the lowest sound a human being can make, but we generally use it up high for those kind of like goblin-y textures or that shrieks or things that cut through the mix. And also we don't want to false fold up high because of the way that the vocal cords stretch and the cricothyroid ligament, and it's just you'll have more results going up high with fry.
Yeah, it's funny. When I sort of was younger and getting into singing in bands, and there'd always be like there was like that era of like YouTube kind of vocalists, and everyone was talking about fry screams and false folds, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I just fucking sing. I just scream.
Yeah, yeah.
It just comes out.
And I love that. And I have a lot of people come in that are really black and white with the definitions. They want to know the definitions. And I'm all for that, and I love that thirst for knowledge, but just make fucking sounds, dude. Because if you get so caught up in doing this particular definition or that definition, you're kind of going to hold yourself back a little bit. I just want you to experiment what feels good for you. Let's start there.
Yep.
And then expand from it, and then you can find out what it is later. Yeah, I love that about you. That's the best way to find, and it's the way to find your sound as well. Yeah. You don't want to sound like someone else. You always be the second best Devin Townsend or the second best Travis Ryan.
Being the second best of either of those would
be
pretty
fucking good.
Yeah, you had to go for like the
ultimate freaks. A lot of people come in and ask me, how do I sound like that? And I go, dude, there's just some people that defy science and they're in that category. Sorry. We can try and I can tell you what they're doing, but they're just freaks of nature.
Yeah, no amount of lessons is going to enable me to get you up to his level, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. At least I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think you just need to take like 10 grams of magic mushrooms and just meet God and do a deal and then come back and see me.
Well, that might be a good place to wrap it up, Alana, unless you've got anything else that you would like to talk about or think that we've missed.
I think that was pretty cool. That was pretty fun. Yeah, I guess I'll end with just some generalized advice for singers. Please stay hydrated. Learn how to breathe. Learn your anatomy the best you can. I don't want to say come and see me. My waiting list has got like over 250 people at the moment, so it is quite hard to come and see me at the moment. But do reach out if you have any questions or find someone that can help you if you're getting stuck. But keep experimenting, have a play, but listen to your body. Listen to your body. If you're feeling inflamed or a little bit sore, What are you doing wrong? Have a think about it. Next time that feeling comes up, just kind of notice what you're doing as you're experimenting and playing. And then because you can't put the right intervention in before you have the diagnosis. So if you're doing this yourself and you're kind of feeling lost and a little bit in the dark, have a think about, diagnose yourself. Am I pushing too much air? Because after I do that really airy bit, that's when my voice starts to hurt. Am I squeezing too much? Do I look like I have like vagina neck going on when I'm done? Or like, I can see like arteries in my head trying to explode. I think maybe I'm pushing too much. Or try and diagnose yourself before you put in particular types of interventions. Don't keep throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
250 people waiting list is crazy. Someone else needs to step up and take the excess.
Yeah, if someone can take the excess and or like we were saying before, and I'm not good at social media. Like I'm shocking at it. So I don't even know what my social media looks like. And I think I'm a bit scared of it too because I don't know how to handle anymore. I don't want to advertise myself.
I'm sorry if this podcast gets you
Yeah.
more inquiries than you can handle.
Fuck you for that. But I mean, go nuts. If anyone wants to help me with their social media, if someone's listening to this and wants to help me with that, that'd be awesome. Sometimes I think about doing group classes because I feel like that would be beneficial for others and also maybe like, not that it really matters in that context, but maybe like probably a financially better decision for me as well to be able to see as many clients as possible. But then I just start thinking about how that works and then I feel like it doesn't align with my purpose because I like teaching one-on-one and be able to
you just get sidetracked and you end up focusing in on one student that you see has an issue that you can diagnose and fix.
Exactly. And it's just not the beauty of having a one-on-one session.
Yep.
So yeah, look, I'm going to take some time to think about how to, because it's been like this for many years, and I haven't really come up with a solution. So yeah, do reach out, and when I figure out what the solution is, I might be able to help you out.
Well, thank you for squeezing me in with all this today, with all that in mind. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. You rang me at the right time. And I feel like it's meant to be. So, but I'm excited to work with you next month. I feel like that you're overdue for an ass kicking, and it's time.
Yeah, I think I'm at that point in life where it's like, okay, if I'm gonna keep, like I'm nearly 40, like if I'm gonna keep singing in my silly little metal band, like I better start taking my instrument seriously because I don't have that natural ability anymore. Well, I guess I do, just not to the same level.
Yeah. And I think you're going to find once you get in the habits and then you're in like premium optimal health, it gets really exciting to get back to that level because suddenly you're creating all these sounds, but it's much easier for you than it was before. And then when that kind of starts to dissipate again because you're getting a bit lazy, you get excited and more motivated to come back to that. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what sounds we can get out of you.
Yeah, it'll be sick. Like
take it to that next level.
It's funny. I never thought I'd be a gym guy, but now if I don't go to the gym like twice a week, I don't feel right.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that same kind of headspace will develop around getting my vocals back up to scratch.
I think so. That, and I'm going to bust your balls. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's probably going to be easy for you to just do what you're supposed to do than deal with my bullshit.
All right, sweet. Well, thanks heaps, Alana. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Lachlan. And this was really fun. And good luck with the rest of the podcast. It's very cool.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio-Technica Australia for providing the high-quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.